North of Sri Lanka today, you could have said much the same for most of the last quarter century. It's noteworthy today because for the last 2 days there was a ceasefire from the government forces to give civilians, they said, a chance to flee the war zone. Few of them took the opportunity and vast numbers are said to be at risk. Tamil guerrillas who've been fighting for over 2 decades to get independence are claimed by the government to be on the brink of final defeat. As Tim Huell reports, the international community is marginalised and impotent.
5,000 miles away in their homeland, Sri Lanka, the final battles of one of the world's longest wars have left at least 100,000 of their fellow countrymen trapped and defenceless. On Parliament Square in London, Tamils can only shout in anger and weep in despair.
Her
second daughter had a baby girl born in a bunker under the ground. Inside the bunker there's a full of water there, and she's saying there's no water to even drink there, and the people are stuck inside the bunker in the water. They don't have nowhere to move. You need to ask the government for stop firing the shell, because they can't come out from the bunker even for water. So she's saying, please save our people, please save our children. First you need to stop the shelling, stop the bombing, and ask Sri Lankan government to stop the war. That's the only way we can save our people.
What they want is a full ceasefire in the fighting between government forces and the LTTE, or Tamil Tiger rebels, who are fighting for an independent state. And until that happens, this 28-year-old Tamil student says he won't eat. He's 10 days into a hunger strike, although in the last few days he has started taking liquids. He told me he decided he was ready to die after his mother was killed in the government offensive, along with his sisters who were rebel fighters and other members of his family.
I can't cry anymore. I won't cry anymore. I want to stop my people crying. I want answer for my family's death. Otherwise, I won't step back from this place. I have nothing to lose more, only my life. So I am ready to lose mine as well in your country.
In the last year, the Tamil Tigers have lost almost all the towns they once controlled in the north of the island. Now the rebels are cornered, along with at least 100,000 civilians, and possibly far more, in a government-declared no-fire zone measuring just over 7 square miles. On Monday and Tuesday, the government stopped firing to let civilians escape. Now the rebels say it started shelling again. The government denies that. But tonight it told Newsnight that it won't extend the ceasefire because it says the LTTE, the Tigers, won't let civilians get away.
The reason is to see, obviously, whether the LTT would let them come out. And sadly, they did not let them come out this time. And I don't really see, therefore, the point of continuing with this unless we can be sure that the LTT will let them out.
However loudly these protesters shout, they're unlikely to gain the attention of the world's leaders. The Sri Lankan war, now apparently in its final stages after more than a quarter of a century of fighting, is one that the international community has proved singularly unwilling or unable to influence.
But the Liberal Democrat MP Simon Hughes has helped the protesters and is now arranging for another Tamil activist who was on hunger strike to meet UN, EU, Commonwealth and American officials.
Just standing by is not an option. When people like Param and people like Siva and other people around the world are willing to sacrifice their life because they believe that's the only way they can bring their cause to the attention of the media.
Now the UN is trying to put pressure on both the Sri Lankan government and the rebels to negotiate. Otherwise, it said today, there'll be a bloodbath.
If there is some kind of final battle with the government trying to destroy the LTT leadership, who are then surrounded by civilians, then the risk of much, much higher casualties than we've seen so far is definitely there. That's what we must avoid at all costs, and that's what we are saying to the government. Please do not go for some final battle on the beaches. Let's find another way out of this.
But neither side seems in much mood for compromise. These protesters overwhelmingly support the Tamil Tigers, But they're listed here as a terrorist organisation, and the Sri Lankan government doesn't regard them as negotiating partners.
There are plenty of Tamil political parties willing now to take a risk, which they were rather frightened of in the past because of the LTT's history of assassinating anybody who talked to the government.
But this conflict, then, this armed conflict, must play out to the end.
The armed conflict will play out if the LTT do not, as they have been asked